In the mid-1990s to early 2000s, one young Namibian outlaw stood out from the rest, not only for his propensity to commit crimes, but for his stroke of luck in getting away with those crimes once in court. Thomas Paulus Nandjepo, who went by a few slightly altered surnames, including Nandjepo and Nandjepo, was popularly known by his nickname Bob Green. Some of his crimes that spanned from 1996 to 2003 included murders, attempted murders, armed robberies, robberies with aggravating circumstances, escape from lawful custody, illegal possessing firearms, malicious damage to properties, and assault. But Bob Green wasn't just wreaking havoc wherever he went. He was also instrumental in repealing a law and scoring a landmark human rights victory that Namibian prisoners still enjoy some 20 years later. Described as a well-spoken and intelligent man who was also arrogant, disrespectful, and cunning, Bob Green first rose to notoriety in 1997 when he and a group of fellow inmates staged a violent breakout from the Windhoek Central Prison on 11 August 1997. During that escape, a prison warden was severely assaulted. After the 5 escapees were recaptured on 16 August 1997, they were kept in chains for more than 6 months, resulting in an urgent appeal on 27 February 1998 to the High Court and the United Nations to have them freed from leg irons. All the claimants argued that being placed in irons was unlawful, violated their rights to dignity, and is against Article 8 of the Namibian Constitution, which states that no person may be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. In their affidavits, the escapees also stated that the chains were tight around their ankles, made it difficult to walk, prevented proper exercise, were causing abrasions around their ankles, were painful to wear, and made it difficult to wash themselves. Although a full bench of the Windhoek High Court on 8 August 1998 ruled that the practice of placing some prisoners in leg irons is not unconstitutional, on 12 July 1999, the Supreme Court outlawed leg irons. Chief Justice Johan Strydom ruled that the use of leg chains was a degrading treatment and as a result in conflict with the Constitution's Article 8, which guarantees respect for human dignity. The use of leg chains, the Chief Justice stated, evoked memories of slavery and of human beings being lowered to the level of a hobbled animal whose mobility is limited so that it cannot stray. But the legal victory was short-lived as Bob Green was expected back in court to face the music for charges of murder and a string of armed robberies committed between 3 November 1996 and 12 February 1997. In that one case, it is reported that on 8 February 1997, Bob Green, who was only 19 years old at the time, as well as 5 members of his gang, robbed Swakopmund's Casino Slot City. During that robbery, the 6 accused robbers walked off with a mere 3,450 Namibian dollars in cash and shot the casino owner, 51-year-old Jacobus Koos Rautenbach, in the head at close range inside his business. In another case of armed robbery, Bob Green was accused of holding at gunpoint top Namibian reggae star Rashe Hammer on 18 November 1996 at Greenwell, Matongo. When Rashe Hammer took to the stand on 20 July 1999 to testify, he said him and a police officer, Constable Alfred Kamwe Masene, ended up being held at gunpoint after they had gone to look for Bob Green, who was suspected of having stolen a taxi owned by Rashe Hammer. When Bob Green, who was conducting his own defense, denied in court that he was the person who had held the singer at gunpoint, Rashe Hammer remarked, "I looked right in the eyes of this man. First there was the barrel of the gun, and then was his eyes." Constable Alfred, on his part, told the court that while they were standing at Chikwambi Bottle Store, Bob Green ordered him to throw down his service pistol, leave his official vehicle's keys, and run off, leaving Rashe Hammer behind. A court reporter for the Namibian newspaper who was covering this story experienced the wrath of Bob Green after he threw a heavy file at the reporter in court, hitting him in the chest to voice his dissatisfaction about how the newspaper was covering his trial. During that occasion, Bob Green also attempted to throw a court interpreter with a shoe after calling her Shikumbu, as he was unhappy with her interpretations. Bob Green was also charged with 2 counts of attempted murder for allegedly shooting 2 robbery victims in their legs at Greenwell, Matongo on 2nd February 1997, a count of attempted murder for shooting at another robbery victim on 3rd February 1997, a count of resisting or hindering a police officer in the execution of his duties, and a count of illegally being in possession of 2 9mm pistols at Greenwell, Matongo on 14 February 1997. On 27 March 2000, the then 21-year-old Bob Green and 4 other members of his gang were acquitted on charges of murder and armed robbery in the Swakopmund case. Although the accused men had confessed to the murder and armed robbery to the police and even identified the scene of the crime, the self-incriminating evidence was disallowed after Bob Green, who had conducted his own defense during his trial, claimed they were assaulted by the police and forced to make the confession. Bob Green also argued that before his confession, he had not been properly informed of his right to legal representation, with the judge ruling that there is no admissible evidence before him to convict the accused men. Less than a week later, on 30 March 2000 though, Bob Green was not so lucky. He was convicted of attempted murder in the Russia Hammer case and 2 counts of robbery with aggravating circumstances and received a relatively lenient 3-year prison term. However, 2 years later, on 30 March 2002, Bob Green was released by mistake, since a previous conviction for the 1997 prison break had not been entered on the prison authorities' records. Few months into his release, Bob Green was back to his old ways. During that time, Bob Green reportedly planned an armed robbery at Oshakati and 3 armed robberies in Windhoek, where they struck at 3 shops in Katutura, including branches of Supreme Furniture and Woermanbroek. On 3 August 2002, Bob Green and his younger brother, Thomas Nandjepo, reportedly robbed a bottle store owner at Hakaana of some 72,000 Namibian dollars in cash. They also fired shots and struck a customer close to the scene, killing him in the process. Again on 25 September 2002, Bob Green, along with a former policeman, Pietras Mutukuta, and one Paulus Nandjepo, were arrested following several shootouts. The first shooting incident took place on the gravel road between Willemstal and Omaruru, after Bob Green and another occupant of the car in which he was traveling allegedly opened fire on a vehicle that was traveling on the same road. The occupants of the attacked vehicle pulled over and fled into the veld, where they sought safety and returned fire on Bob Green and his gang as they were ransacking their car. The robbers were later again involved in a gunfight, this time with the police, in a farmland some 25 kilometers west of Okahanja. When a team of investigators returned to the scene in daylight and started tracking the suspects, they came across Bob Green, who had been shot in the foot. He was immediately taken to hospital and appeared in court after he made a full recovery. Bob Green got lucky again and was granted bail in the amount of 5,000 Namibian dollars in connection with a robbery and shootout with the police in the Willemstal area. In 2003, defense lawyer Sisa Namanje had established his law firm and Bob Green was one of his first clients. With the help of Sisa, Bob Green continued to enjoy his freedom by being granted bail when he found himself on the wrong side of the law. But his luck ran out on 5 November 2003. On the fateful day, Bob Green and 3 other gang members stormed the NAMPO's office at Ongwediva at around 3 p.m. and killed a police constable before fleeing with 12,000 Namibian dollars in cash, as well as payphone cards and the policeman's service rifle. Police gave chase for almost 100 kilometers into the Ohangwena region, where 3 of the armed robbers, including Bob Green, were shot and killed during the exchange of fire around 5:30 p.m. in the Okalemba area. Bob Green was only 25 years old and died the way he had lived, in conflict with the law.